One of the legacies of Cambodia's troubled history is the continuing threat posed by unexploded ordnance and landmines. There are still some 800 victims of landmines reported every year. Tim Page is a renowned war photographer, himself a victim of a landmine, and now he's patron of the Mines Action Group. He now reports on the seemingly endless task of clearing Cambodia's countryside.
Been coming back to Cambodia and Indochina since 1964, taking pictures of the country and the conflict, which have decimated it for over 30 years. My name's Tim Page. For the latter part of the 60s in Vietnam, I was embroiled in the madness of that brutal conflict. Eventually the ripple of that insidious war went right across Indochina. My particular war blew to an end in 1969 on April 19th near the Cambodian border when a 105mm booby trap mine went off. They had to extract 200 centimeters of my brain from my head, leaving me hemiplegic. It's something to do with that has driven me to work extensively for MAG and demining organizations globally. We're bumping down Route 10, a main road which heads towards Pailin, the old Khmer Rouge capital, ruby center of Cambodia. Even a few years ago, turn of the century, you found yourself under sniper fire coming down this road. We're heading way down this road, about 60, 70 kilometers, towards a mines advisory group, demining center. The odd thing about this particular mob down here is they're all female. MAG's made a deliberate choice, try to take care of the disadvantaged. One of the oldest ladies in this group and the longest serving ladies is Lee Chum-Buri. She loves to do it because her husband was killed by a mine back in '88. This has to be one of the most hazardous jobs you can have. Even her neighbors think she's slightly insane to do it.
They think that I am brave to clear mines because they cannot do that. But I explained to them I was trained for a month. I learned about the safety rules and saw that I can protect myself.
The biggest reason these ladies of MAG 12 do this incredibly hazardous job is the $120 a month. It's personal too.
My older brother was a farmer, and he went into a field to clear the undergrowth. When he was clearing the fields, he was blown up. My younger brother went to help, but he stepped on another landmine.
This site down here has been operational since, ironically, Christmas Day last year. Already, 50 pieces of unexploded ordnance and mines have been dug up. Today, the 51st was found. It's obvious what these insidious weapons do. This old boy lost both his foot and his sight. For most like him, there's only very little help. Others get absolutely nothing. This is a former Khmer Rouge soldier, and we both seem to be limping at the same speed. He lost his leg several years ago. This gentleman actually made his own leg. I mean, you can see that it's rather a primitive device he's got here. It's to prevent such horrific sights that these women of MAG 12 in the broiling sun day after day and risk their lives. This painstaking work, uncovering millimetre by millimetre, this rebuke to the armies, the air forces, the powers of America, the Khmer Rouge, the Vietnamese, the Cambodian factions, the ties that has sowed this legacy right across this tragic nation.
Tim Page there with that report. Welcome back to 101 East. We're at Tol Sleng prison in Phnom Penh discussing the upcoming extraordinary chambers in the courts of Cambodia procedure, the attempt to find justice or some kind of end to the Khmer Rouge years. David, let me ask you, the Khmer Rouge's ascent to power, how did that happen? How was that group of people who subsequently proved themselves to be really quite extreme managed to work their way into power?
Couldn't have happened without the Vietnam War. That's my one-line answer. They needed Vietnamese assistance. They needed the turbulence that was in Indochina. The Vietnamese helped them along the way. They also needed the kind of unpopularity of the United States ever had globally in that period. If you remember the 70s, this was a time when this seemed a good thing to do. They themselves rose to power because they had very tight control over the levers themselves inside the party, very loyal to each other, Pol Pot and his associates, a group that formed in the early 1960s, went into the woods in the mid-1960s. This system didn't break until much later. These people stayed together, they talked together. There's a collective leadership. This is another point to be made about them. They talk about the Pol Pot regime. We love to demonize a single person, but this was much more collective than, say, Maoism was. This was a group of people thinking alike and running the revolution together.
How did you report it at the time?
I reported it as not as a struggle between the Khmer Rouge and the Lon Nol government so much. It was right at the very beginning in 1970 when Prince Sihanouk was overthrown as leader of this country and Lon Nol took over. It was a war between the Lon Nol army, backed by the Americans and the South Vietnamese, and communist Vietnamese forces who were using Cambodia as a sanctuary for their war in Vietnam.
The Khmer Rouge were hidden in secret. We didn't know about them.
Right.
In the first year or so, we didn't talk about the Khmer Rouge. We didn't know. All the bodies on the battlefields we saw were Vietnamese. There were no Cambodians being killed, almost.
And from a Cambodian history, how did you grow up being informed of what happened?
I was 7 years old when the Khmer Rouge came to power. And then I witnessed the regime for 3 years, more than 3 years. And during the period, I also, learned a lot of things happening, even though I was young at the time. But again, I was forced to live in a children camp. And again, I was also asked to look after the water buffaloes and cows in the paddy fields.
Again, from your perspective, this special trial that's going on, is that response too little too late, or do you think it's adequate?
I don't think it's adequate at all. I think it's what's happened and it probably will happen. But is it justice? That's the question. I think it's too late for that. Are there other lessons to be learnt by having that sort of trial, which will hopefully heal some of the wounds here? That is questionable, but in a larger context, it's part of a process which the United Nations has been at for a number of years, which is trying to create an international sense of justice for crimes which are just too great to be covered over.
Will this trial process create healing in Cambodia? When this is over, will Cambodia be a better place?
At least, yes, it will put an end to the culture of impunity to one extent, to one particular case. And it's good for Cambodia, at least, to tell the younger leaders and younger generation that the impunity will not be, hidden.
Do you think there will be justice at the end of this? What would you like to see as a result?
I don't see that, or I don't think that justice will really prevail for this particular case, but at least it can tell that, okay, the impunity will have to be ended, at least to a certain point.
Hun Sen has said only in the past few weeks that he doesn't want to talk about this trial process. He's had enough of talking to the media about this. Do you think he's committed to this process?
First of all, everybody just, pinpoint their fingers to Hun Sen that he's the only person behind the scene and everything must be decided by him. And in fact, yes, it is. But again, since he wants to distance himself from the process in order to show the world that he's committed to do it. But again, some say even though he's still very far from the process, but all the decision-making process will have to get through, like political.
Same question to you: is he committed to this?
I think it's a process that's going on that he wants it to continue in ways that are pleasing to him, which is he can't stop it. If it stops through other reasons and his interference cannot be demonstrated, I don't think he'd be that sad about it. But it's going on; it's getting momentum now, and I think he'll take credit for this. He'll say, we've been trying to do this since 1997. Here it comes, and he said, yeah, that's.
How will the Western media report what's going on there?
I think they will flock here, and they will report that it was an event which was too late, dealing with something from yesterday, and that the opportunities have been that there's a lost opportunity it should have been done many years.
So they'll focus on the delay rather than the solution.
I think they will certainly focus on the delay, and I think they will rake over the murky past of the United States and why that some of those things may not be addressed in the court. I don't know. So much of the history of what happened to the Khmer Rouge is now known, and there's lots of things that aren't known, but I mean the great broad strokes of how many people died and how they died and what happened in this horrific place here is very well documented, because the Khmer Rouge documented it themselves.
Right. But you have to say that Cambodia has already moved on to an enormous extent. Here we are in Tuol Sleng prison, the heart of the horror of this entire regime. Pol Pot's final resting place up in An Long Beng is being turned into a tourist destination. It doesn't seem to create quite the same emotion anymore.
Well, but you know the point, you know, who can expect that the trial process take for 10 years? From the first letter sent by the co-prime minister Hun Sen and Prince Norodom Ramrat in 1997. It was on the June 21st, 1997, asking Kofi Annan, the Secretary General of the UN, for legal assistance through this process. But again, it drags on until today. It's already 10 years, and nobody expects that such kind of thing happen.
Well, we've spoken to the media, David. Let's put the final question to you. How will history interpret these processes? Tough question, but you have experience in this field.
The first answer is impossible to say, because that's what historians always say, because they talk about the future. But I think this will be just seen as a series of steps, and maybe this impunity thing will come into it. Maybe these people these old people having faced a bit of a jury, a little bit of embarrassment, is a positive step. The Khmer Rouge period is going to fade in importance, but they're going to know more about it. May start getting taught in the schools to a greater extent, which I think is a very good idea, so that people will start internalizing this is something that happened in their country, rather like people in Germany, students in Germany study that period, students in Japan do not. You know, this is still on the Japanese side of the, not denial is too strong a word, but maybe evasion, postponement, whatever. So that'll be, I think that's going to come out of this, is it's going to be, particularly after next year's election, when I think the current regime will cement itself in power even more than now. And they'll say, fine, teach the Khmer Rouge in school. That's no harm to us.
Gentlemen, thank you all very much indeed.
You're welcome.
And that's it from this edition of 101 East from Tuol Sleng Prison in Cambodia.